Life Unrehearsed on CJD 800, brought to you by alavida.ca. Celebrate a life well lived before or after death.
And good afternoon. Welcome to Life Unrehearsed. This is a show about the ins and outs of family life. Might be about yourselves, maybe your elderly parents, or even the kids. We want you to know that you're not alone in all of this. So we tackle these topics and we try to navigate you through it all. My name is Matt DelVecchio, specialize in free retirement home search and senior transition support. I'm here with my co-host, Corrie Sirota, clinical social worker and psychotherapist specializing in grief and loss. How you doing, Corrie?
All good, despite the weather, all good.
Welcome to winter. You know, Corrie, we have a great show lined up, coming up very shortly. You know, when you hear the term retirement residence or senior residence, what do you typically think of? Well, in my case, usually you think of, older people, wheelchairs. Well, it couldn't be further from the truth. And the industry is really thriving. It's very competitive. And as a result, you won't believe some of the trends that are going on in the senior living industry. And that's why we're really happy to have a couple of representatives from Chartwell Retirement, it is Canada's largest operator of retirement residences. Very excited to have them, and very interesting topic, Corrie.
I can't wait to hear what they can share with us, because I definitely had those stereotypes.
It is. Corrie, I heard you after our show last Sunday. You were immediately on the parenting show. Way to go. It was quite nice.
Thank you. Thank you so much. It was important to be on the show because as a grief counselor and dealing with crisis, unfortunately, what had happened in Texas that very week, it was really important for me that we have the opportunity to talk to parents about how to talk to your children about crisis. So I was grateful that they recognized that they needed something like that, the real parents, Orla and Andrea, and I was very happy to be there.
Great interview. While we're talking about that, you're running this camp errand. You want to briefly talk about this amazing camp?
Yes, so this is my pride and joy. It's a free weekend-long bereavement camp for children ages 6 to 17. We are just about to launch the August 2018. So you'll hear lots more about that, but this is one of the ways to help kids navigate through the grief process.
No, amazing. Talk about kids. Well, as you know, Corrie, my kid these days is my puppy Zola, the Great Dane puppy at 90 pounds. And this morning it was so funny, her first snowfall experience. So as we open up the door, out she ran, and it looked like a gigantic rabbit hopping around outside in the backyard.
But it's so funny. Was she freaking out?
Oh, yeah. She had no idea, started eating the snow. So, yeah, Zola's first winter. All right. Let's get right into this. There are some amazing trends in the senior living industry. And Corrie, as you know, in my day-to-day life, my company, Liana's, it's a free service where we work with families and loved ones, where we visit and tour around all types of different retirement residences. Mm-hmm. And I tell you, sometimes I walk out of these tours and I say, man, I'd like to live in some of these places. It's really not your stereotypical residence anymore. And, that's why we're really, really pleased to have with us in studio. We have Kristel Louboutin, Director of Marketing for Chartwell. And as I mentioned, Chartwell is Canada's largest owner and operator of retirement residences. And we also have Lorraine Loubier, who's the General Manager of one of Chartwell's newest properties, and may I say one of the newest properties in Canada, of the Prescott in Vaudreuil. So Kristel and Lorraine, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Matt.
Lorraine, I've been in the Prescott. It's spectacular, and it is one of the newest ones. It's really something else. We're going to talk about some of the amenities available in general. But Kristel, first for you, I'd like to back it up a little bit, because there is this stigma. And could you just give a brief explanation of the types of living accommodations that are available in retirement residences today?
So at Chartwell specifically, we offer a range of senior living accommodation that will go from independent living, supported living, assisted living, and long-term care across Canada and in Quebec also. So it really depends on the needs of our residents. We are adapting and evolving all the services and care.
Okay. What is the typical question that you get asked when someone comes in or wants to know more about this service? Can you talk a
What
little
would be
about
the first question
Yeah,
that you
well,
would
yeah.
get, Lorraine, when people come in your home?
Typically, they would say something to the effect of, well, there are a lot of old people here, so how do I fit in? And we would make sure that they would see some of our activities. We would invite them for a lunch to see that we serve gourmet dishes very often. We would make sure that their illusion of what a retirement home is totally broken and has to be restructured.
Oh yeah, the misconception of the home that you would have your parents go 20 years ago, or even we've been in the business for around 10 years, and the way we were building home 10 years ago is so different than today, and the kind of services and amenity that you can find are different. And in 10 years, we're probably going to build new home with different services because people are changing and their needs. The generation is really changing. The baby boomer are requesting things like golf simulator that nobody would have asked us that 10 years ago.
Right.
It is quite amazing how it is transferring, and quite frankly, boomers and the people moving into retirement residences are asking for more. That's Kristel Louboutin and Lorraine Loubier from Chartwell, and I'm here with Corrie Sirota. I'm at DelVecchio, and we're talking trends in senior living industry. Now, you talk about the golf simulator as an example of golf amenities in residences. I would have never thought that. And so, what other amenities are being demanded, or are you seeing more and more of in the industry?
I would say that everything about food. So 10 years ago, it was all about having pretty much a cafeteria in one of our home. We're talking today in a dining room. We're talking about restaurant style. So in one of the new home that we open also this year, we have 3 kind of restaurant into that home. Same way you have when you're going, in a resort in the south, when you have that Italian kitchen or the more, steakhouse kind of thing. So you have to offer different type of menu. We're also building bistro. So now we're talking about having half an hour happy hour into our home. I don't want to go to the dining room for breakfast. I just want to grab a coffee in the bistro or having a croissant in the morning. We're also building a new home in Cap Rouge in Quebec City with our first, what we call the demonstration kitchen. So basically it's a room that people could use and invite their family and friend. Like a lab kitchen that we would see in a TV show kitchen. So people inviting, they don't have to do the housekeeping of the room before and after. Basically, it's all about having fun and cooking together.
Nice. It reminds me of a cruise ship.
Exactly.
That's true. Where you have the different restaurants. You can go to the dining room.
Yeah.
You can room. So that sounds like very much more modern, for lack of a better word.
Yeah.
So the reality, though, of seniors growing older, medical issues. So are there nurses on staff at these residents?
They are always, how do we call not nurses? Yes.
We have auxiliary nurses, and we call them les préposés à la résident, or PSWs, I believe they're called in Ontario. And what they do is they're there 24 hours a day. There's always a medical or a nursing surveillance to make sure that people are safe and secure, to make sure that they don't have any issues or falls, or there's always somebody there for them.
So they really have the peace of mind. And I even think doctors occasionally come on site. Is that quite common?
That's correct. Yeah.
Oh, well.
It really is, for those that are concerned and they want to maybe downsize a little bit but want that security, it is comforting to know that they've got some help there.
I always say that it's peace of mind. You are listening to Life Unrehearsed. I'm Corrie Sirota, along with my co-host Matt DelVecchio, and we're talking senior living trends with Kristel Louboutin, Director of Marketing for Chartwell, and Lorraine Loubier, General Manager of Chartwell Le Prescott in Vaudreuil. We have, I have to put out the elephant in the room, which is the question that I have to believe you are asked constantly. The question would be about how much a place like this does cost. So we'll look at that right after we head out to the CJD Traffic Center for an update.
Life Unrehearsed on CJD 800, brought to you by alavida.ca. Celebrate a life well lived before or after death.
Homeward bound,
Welcome back to Life Unrehearsed. I'm Corrie Sirota along with Matt DelVecchio, and we're talking senior living trends with Kristel Louboutin, Director of Marketing for Chartwell, one of the largest operators of senior residences and retirement homes in Canada. We also have Lorraine Loubier, the General Manager of Chartwell Le Prescott in Vaudreuil. Right before the traffic, we asked a very heated question, but I'm going to ask you to hang on because I also wanted to mention that coming up right after our news, we have a fascinating person coming into the studio. We are talking about some very, very hot topics around we all know we should get our financial house in order. Standard stuff. Advisors will recommend RSPs, TFSAs, RESPs, I say LMNOPs. We have all kinds of stuff we need to do. But are we ready when it comes down to dealing with unexpected financial matters such as second marriages, stepchildren, unexpected debt, power of attorney, inheritances, no inheritances? It can get really down and dirty. And we have someone in studio today, Bill Kovalchuk. He's the founder and president of Claret Asset Management, and he's going to be talking to us about the good, the bad, and the ugly of financial management.
Can't wait for that right after the news.
Right after the news. So back to the elephant in the room. I asked you before we went out to traffic about costs.
So let's be clear. It's the first question that everyone asks when they call, when they just come and visit. It's a hard question to answer because, of course, there's so many services that will be included in that price. So usually the way it works, you have your basic rent, and after that, any of the other option will makes you have the complete package price. Of course, we're having apartment from studio from 1 to 3 bedroom. Of course, depend the neighborhood when we're looking for. Obviously, the price downtown in Outremont here in Montreal versus in Shawinigan will follow the value of the land, and the care will evolve upon the needs of a resident. So today, a price for my mom would be something that will be different maybe in 2 years if needs are evolving. So it's really about asking the question, depends of what your parents or what you yourself really need, where you want to live exactly. But ask the question. We cannot compare apple to apple.
Fair enough.
I think that's it's so true, and also reassuring both for the person moving into the retirement residence, but also for their children as well, because you want to avoid moving and moving and moving, so you can go in completely independent, live a really thriving life, and nice to know that if ever you need help like med management or help with meals or getting in and out of bed, all the way up to those levels. So it's very comforting. Obviously, there's a cost to that, but at least you don't have to move
correct.
So that's wonderful. Now, when I go on some of these tours, they leave these nice, beautiful brochures and pochettes, and almost always there's these calendars in there. And I thought I had a busy calendar, Corrie. You would not believe what's going on. Now, Lorraine, as general manager of Le Prescott in Vaudreuil, you've given out these calendars. What would a typical week look like?
A typical week starts with aqua fitness. That has to be our most popular routine. And we do it 4 times a week. That's how popular it is. We also have activities like social dance classes. We're going into iPad classes starting in January. We're going to be working with the Thomas More Group. We're going to have an educational environment. We have something called Fit Minds that helps keep your memory sharp and clean. We have physical activities. We have concerts. At the end of the week, I think I need the rest more than the residents.
And so there's even outings off-site.
Outings off-site. We're going to be going to the casino showrooms to see some of the acts over there, like Sinatra. We're going to be going to La Maison Tressler, which is a cultural house in Vaudreuil for concerts. We go everywhere, anywhere, and we have a lot of fun doing it.
And I would say, maybe I can add to that, most of the activity that we're doing, it's because the residents are asking for it.
Yes.
We're not developing a calendar that won't fit the requests of our resident. And it's funny how that calendar could be different from a city to another city.
Fair enough. who creates these calendars? So you say that you take interest and requests from the residents, but is there someone on staff that
we
is
all
responsible?
participate together when we decide to set up an activity. The sales team is there, the activities team is there, the dining room manager is there, even the tech admin is there because she helps us with all the costing and everything else. We do it as a team. We have weekly meetings with the residents to understand what it is they like doing and what they'd like to see more of. And we start from there and build.
That was Lorraine Loubier, General Manager of Chartwell de Prescott, and we're also here with Kristel Louboutin, Director of Marketing of Chartwell, Canada's largest operator of retirement residences. Really happy we could have you both here. A lot of residences are involved in different charity events, and Lorraine, you pulled off, I would say, a real coup. I think it was last Friday with an event called Dancing with Seniors, I guess, or Dancing with the Seniors. And can you tell us a little bit more about this fantastic event?
This event is for our residents to be able to give back to the community. So how do we do that? We are affiliated, Chartwell is affiliated with our national charitable partner, which is Wish of a Lifetime. And Wish of a Lifetime grants wishes to seniors in the community or in residences who have deserved or who are looking for something special to make their lives better. Our residents did some training with the Arthur Murray School of Dance. We had judges sitting in the wings waiting to comment on their beautiful exercise of 6 different dances. Our winner from last year was Martha. Martha is 96 and she is legally blind.
Unbelievable.
And she made the finals again this year at 97.
That's crazy.
Incredible.
So
So you had a couple hundred people show up to this event,
We
didn't
had
you?
210 people show up. We were really thrilled and excited. We raised over $5,300 for the foundation.
Incredible.
And this is our people giving back to the community.
What a beautiful initiative. What a really, really very special initiative. So I'm listening. It sounds like these places are gorgeous. They meet the needs. They've got the food. They've got the buffets or the variety of foods. So how would I know if I were looking at a residence? How would I know if it was a good fit?
First of all, look on the internet, but mostly you have to visit many homes. At least 3, I would say. You're looking for a fit when everybody wants to buy a home. We're not only visiting one home. We need to step in. We need to ask questions. Don't be shy. Visit more than one home. Go on their website. We do have a website, chartwell.com, which we just launched a resource center where you can find tool, calculator, questionnaire. Am I ready yet? How to identify the different level of care of each resident. It's a research that we need to do for sure.
And that's my life day to day.
Yeah.
And it's so, you see it after the tour that, most people are nervous and most want to stay at home until you start doing the tours and you see people like yourselves and you start to realize, this could be not just it's the last chapter. In fact, it's very much a next chapter.
Yeah.
And in many cases, you're upgrading your lifestyle. And so that's what I really like about this. Really quickly, there's resistance out there. Sometimes, and adult children are usually the ones who bear the brunt of this on their shoulders. They're worried about mom or dad. Any quick recommendations that we could talk to the adult children about and try to talk to mom and dad? What should they be doing?
I think that the adult children have to be listening to what their parents are looking for. Don't choose a residence based on what you would like, but rather what your parent would feel comfortable in. Let them see as much as possible so that they can make the proper choice for themselves. And orientation is so much faster and it's really good for them to make their own decision.
Excellent advice. Well, Kristel and Lorraine, thank you so much for being with us. How could we find out a little bit more about Chartwell? Where can we go?
So chartwell.com, you'll find everything that you're looking for, I would say.
Chartwell.com, absolutely.
Okay, thank you so much. Coming up, you are not going to want to miss this. It's going to be our discussion with Bill Kovalchuk. He's the founder and president of Claret Asset Management, and he's going to be talking about the good, the bad, and the ugly of your family's financial future.
What do you mean? It's all good, isn't it? No?
Yeah, until it's not. It's good until it's not. So looking forward to that.
Life Unrehearsed on CJD 800, brought to you by alavida.ca. Celebrate a life well lived before or after death.
Papa was a rolling stone. Wherever he laid his hat was his home.
Well, welcome back to Life Unrehearsed. Papa was a Rolling Stone. Corrie, you just don't know where the money might be.
Surprise!
You're listening to Life Unrehearsed. How appropriate. It's my name is Matt DelVecchio, certified professional consultant on aging and owner of Lianis Retirement Home Search and Senior Transition Support. Here with my co-host Corrie Sirota, social worker and psychotherapist specializing in grief and loss. So, Corrie, we have a really interesting segment here. And, usually it's stories you hear of a friend, just maybe a nasty inheritance or a second marriage and demands. But you know what? It happens a lot more than we think about.
Without a doubt, without question. I know alone, just in my social circle, people that second marriages, hidden bank accounts, second homes or condos that that pilfer. No, it's not pretty.
You want to give any names? No. Not going to get you in trouble. No, it really is. At the end of the day, we have to be accountable to ourselves, and your guard, rightly so, needs to be up.
Yeah. So, and on that note, we are very pleased to have Bill Kovalchuk with us. He is the co-founder and president of Claret Asset Management. That's a company specializing in wealth management and financial advice. And Bill has literally seen it all. We'll be discussing the good, the bad, and the ugly of your family's financial future and what you need to be doing to protect yourself from surprises. So I think in that being said, let's get right into it. Something like the challenges of second marriages. What are some of the demands from the other partner? What do you see? How can people deal with this very sensitive topic?
Well, some of the additional complications that come with a second or third marriage tends to be kids from the first, kids from the second marriage, and then how do you divide up assets? There's only a finite amount of assets that want to get divided a bunch of different ways. The best ideal solution, doesn't usually happen this way at the beginning, is communications. You can't be an ostrich and have your head in the sand. And so you need to be able to communicate who needs what. And it could be anything from, kids need something now and you need to take care of your current spouse as well later. And so how do you have that conversation with the whole family?
And you were saying some of the dynamic, it evolves over time, right? These aren't conversations that typically come up in the first or second year of a second marriage, right? This is usually later on in the marriage?
They'll typically come up after maybe about 5 to 10 years. Mm-hmm. And as things move along and suddenly the second spouse would want to have a little bit more security, a little bit more comfort, want to know where they're going. And then that conversation eventually comes up.
Bill, and you have seen it all in the normal days. You're managing people's money, doing a great job at it. We talk about inheritances, and sometimes what you're thinking you'll get, you might not get. But we had talked about earlier on early inheritances, and this is something that maybe is a way of resolving this. And when would there be a situation for an early inheritance that's proactively done by mom and dad?
Or maybe it's just by mom or by dad.
Mm-hmm.
And the answer usually revolves around issues such as, say, education or health or housing. So if you want to help your kids get an early start with a house, then there's an early inheritance that can be involved. Or if there's a health issue or an education of kids or grandkids, more and more the cost of education goes up. And sometimes it's the grandparents that are helping out these days. And so that is a quick financial solution to the second, third, and how do you deal with early inheritances so everyone feels that they're getting their fair share, appropriately treated.
Freudian slip, maybe.
Yeah, there you go. And how does it all continue going forward? So early inheritances can be a solution.
Okay, I'm thinking my kids are listening to this and they're like, yes, no.
The kids need to remember it's your money.
That's right.
So, okay, that being said, just let me say that you are listening to Bill Kovalchuk, who is the co-founder and president of Claret Asset Management, a company specializing in wealth management and financial services. And we are here on Life Unrehearsed with Matt DelVecchio, and I'm Corrie Sirota. So, next question in relation to all of this is, what are some of the nastier surprises that families experience?
Well, nasty surprises can include, say, siblings who charge fees for managing the parents' affairs, but the rest of the siblings don't know about it.
Okay, stop right there. Does that actually happen?
And so, well, if you have, say, four different kids, different provinces, you might see somebody dipping into mom or grandma's bank account to help make ends meet. So you just need to be careful, right? And again, you come back to communications, making sure the other kids know what's happening. If they're all fine with it, that's great. If it's a surprise, it's a surprise.
And if you're suspicious, can you do anything? What should you do? Or just have that, sort of dinner table or a conference call and saying there's something up here. We want to get everything above board here.
It can start simply with bank accounts. I mean, everybody has bank accounts. If the payments look strange, then you know to expect something. You can go to tax returns to find out what's happening. If there's less and less money available for the parents to spend, maybe there's a leak somewhere. So there's different things you can do. It comes back to communications, having an active interest, but you also have to have the parents have the interest to participate as well and understand why they're participating.
So there's one. Kids maybe charging a fee. What other surprises, shall we say, that you see sometimes in your world?
Well, then you're in the topic of seniors abuse, and that just is basically stealing money, misusing credit cards, having joint bank accounts that shouldn't be there. I guess the ultimate is changing wills, inheritances, trust structures. But that's simply back to a matter of understanding its communications, what's available, what's out there, how are things structured. And the advantage of the communications, since people are so afraid to have those conversations, can be tax efficiency. And so if you can save a pile of money on taxes by having that conversation well ahead of time, you actually save a whole bunch of heartache and headache later and possibly fights as well.
True, very, very true. I'm wondering, though, of course, I believe, as a therapist, I believe communication is integral. How would someone start that kind of conversation?
Usually it has to start with, if you're talking about just a plain old transition, it's simply, say, a board meeting. You could have a family board meeting. You get together. You have some basic rules of the game. You might bring in a consultant or someone to help run the meeting for you. Have an agenda ahead of time. Here's what we want to chat about. And here are the topics. And so, it might be something as simple as, the current spouse gets the RSP because it's a tax-free rollover. The kids get the primary residence because that's tax-free, and you divide up the difference with the portfolio. And if it's that clean, that's very nice. That's pretty straightforward. But you need to start the conversation. Earlier, better. If you notice something strange, then you need to be a little more inquisitive, because that's when you find out things are disappearing or parents are maybe living extremely well. Or remember, in the age of entitlement, it's the parents' money. They can do what they want with it, and the remainder goes to the kids. But if there's some things that don't add up, you can see it through the tax return, through the spending habits, through the bank accounts. There's plenty of signs. You just have to take a little look.
You're listening to Life Unrehearsed. That's Bill Kovalchuk speaking, and Bill's the co-founder and president of Claret Asset Management. Bill, obviously communication is key. Some of the other things you were mentioning, you even run into reverse mortgages or debt that no one was aware of, or maybe only one sibling was aware of. And I think that's just grouped into the whole, where should I be looking? And I guess look at the bank statements if you have access to that. And anything else you could suggest, because it's sensitive, right? Like,
and sometimes
I'm not going to show you my bank statement.
Sometimes it's only one of the spouses that's aware of the fact there's a line of credit or some debt that's helping to pay for the family expenses as well. So it's again, it's a group effort. Don't be an ostrich. To get your head out of the sand, take a look around, and see what's going on.
Be aware of what's going on now. Bill, you really do a good thing for your clients and your company. And we're going to ask you about some of the must-dos that we should be doing, and I think this will be good for everyone. But first, we're going to head to the CJD Traffic Center for an update, and then we're going to hear all about the must-dos from Bill Kovalchuk.
Life Unrehearsed on CJD 800, brought to you by alavida.ca. Celebrate a life well lived before or after death.
Go on, take the money and run. Go on, take the
Little Steve Miller Band. Take the money and run, Bill. This is Life Unrehearsed. Matt DelVecchio here with Corrie Sirota, and we're talking with Bill Kovalchuk, co-founder and president of Claret Asset Management. And Bill's been a real eye-opener. And just before traffic, we talked about some of the must-dos that you would advise for your clients. So what would some of those must-dos be?
You want to make sure you have an updated power of attorney. You want to have your wills up to date. Having a mandate of incapacity would be wonderful. And then more importantly, then communicate it to everybody. So everybody knows what their role is. Everybody knows what they have to do. If there's some wishes, that'd be wonderful. And so the more people know ahead of time, the better they can execute whatever it is you want to have done. Of course, you can clean up the basement too, but that's another issue.
And you hear about power of attorneys very often. I hear, yeah, I know I should, but it's too expensive. I talked to a notary, and so the cost question comes into play, and they just don't do it.
And so you should see the expense afterwards when there's a fight going on, when there's tax inefficiency, when there's more money being paid, probably during a difficult time emotionally, maybe even financially. And so doing it up front is a whole lot easier. Not a lot of fun at all, but you got to get it done. It faces your mortality, right?
Actually, very, very good points. So then I want to ask you, not easy conversations. So for you, what's the hardest thing you need to tell people?
The hardest thing often is telling people that they're spending too much money at their current rate. So if somebody's been on a certain pattern for a period of time, you look at the math and you say, look, another 12 years they're out of money. You have to go have a conversation. As a professional, you need to let them know that you're spending too much money, and that's not an easy conversation to have. What you'll find out when you have the conversation might surprise you, actually. So if you tell somebody, look, if you keep spending the way you're spending, 12 years, the money's gone, they might come back and tell you, well, my doctor says I'm going to be dead in less than 5 years. So you know what? 12 years seems pretty good. The kids get the rest and I'm okay. And so suddenly as a professional, okay, now I have a different picture. I understand what I'm dealing with. You might also find out that, say, the last few years they've been giving money to a child to put an extension on their house for a bedroom and a bathroom for them to live in. Not that they necessarily want to be there, but it's an upgrade. And then you realize that, okay, no, their spending habit is not going to be the same in the future, and they are fine. But you need to bring that up because you'd rather not be friends with them and let them have the money than 12 years later say, you have no more money left. Now, some people will hate you for it and eventually come around, and that's okay too.
Yeah, it's we just got to live with it.
Being
That's
professional.
Right. Being professional is right. That's Bill Kovalchuk, co-founder of Claret Asset Management, giving us some advice as to what we should be doing to protect ourselves financially. Okay, I'm going to use the proverbial, you get hit by a bus and you've got all your files somewhere and people, the family's kind of left hanging, don't know where to go. So what should we be doing to talk to either our children or spouse? Any recommendations?
So the easy ones with the family, because then you have instructions, you might have that whole power of attorney, wills, and mandate of incapacity set up. The bigger challenge that we find now is with single people who possibly don't have kids, don't have brothers or sisters. They're really single people. And so then how do you bring up that topic of their mortality to them and find out who do I contact? If you're renting, all of a sudden there's bills to pay. You're in the hospital. I don't know you're in the hospital. There's rent to pay. There's all kind of expenses to pay. And then who do I talk to? Give me instructions. And again, it's a function of communications, because with the family, it's usually pretty straightforward.
So who do they talk to?
And that is exactly that. So they're going to say, look, I have a boyfriend, I have a girlfriend, I have somebody I'd like to donate to. There's a foundation. I'd like to put it towards the following causes. And then you have a real conversation going forward. But it's a tough conversation from the other side as well, because they have to recognize one day they're going to have to deal with this. And it could be a car accident on a slippery day. It could be a function of, over time, diminished capacity. And diminished capacity is another big issue, which is becoming a greater issue on a regular basis. And you identify this simply when somebody does something out of the ordinary.
Yeah, keep your eye out there, and we're approaching holiday season coming up, and families are together. Maybe you won't be with mom or dad so often, and you start to see things. Geez, mom or dad was a little slower, and now's the time to have some of these red flags up and watch it.
And from a professional's perspective, you're dealing with people you've known for 10, 15, 20 years. And so it's tough to notice the change, just as the family members have the same difficulty. But if somebody, say, is making a contribution to the tax-free savings account in January, and then they call you to do the same thing in June, and then they call you to do it again in September, you sort of go, hang on, we got red flags, right? And that's one of the signs. Or if they made them, tried to make them repeatedly, that's one of the for sure red signs.
Could you actually identify some other red flags?
Other red flags that you need to watch for deal more with spending habits. And so is there somebody else who's impinging on their capital? Do they have a sudden new best friend who's come into their life in the past 4 or 5 months who seems to be taking over everything for them? You do have the very, very late stage marriage that comes up. And so those are all issues that the family just needs to be aware of and have a participatory role in. So you need to be able to listen to the client, not judge them. And you need to be aware of what's going on.
Such incredible advice. Thank you so much, Bill. Here's a question for you. How do people get in touch with you? Because we need to know.
We need help.
Name's Bill
Help.
Kovalchuk, Claret Asset Management. So that's claret.ca. And call anytime.
It should be claretmanagement.help.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Bill. Really
Very
informative,
welcome.
very good
Anytime.
stuff. Now, next week, you're not going to want to miss next week's show. Corrie, we've been working on this one for a while. It'll be really special. First of all, we will have Kenny Bodanis with us. Kenny is a family specialist, if you will. We're going to be talking about the subject of how do you talk to your children about grandparents that may be going through the aging process, and they're just not the same. Maybe there's some care levels. We just talked earlier on in the first half of the show, they're going into a retirement residence. So how do we approach that as a family and open up that communication? Bill, it's communication again. That's what it's about. And we also have an incredible couple. For anyone dealing, might be a spouse that may have a debilitating disease, we have a wonderful husband and wife team coming up. The gentleman has Parkinson's, and they are living and a full lifestyle, and they're persevering, have a great attitude. I think you're going to want to hear that. So please listen to us next Sunday. You can catch us every Sunday on CJD. This is Life Unrehearsed. Hey, Corrie, say goodbye, Corrie.
Goodbye, Corrie.
All right. News shortly.